Anyone have something white? Everyone good?
Can you do a quick mic check?
Mic check, 1, 2.
Just about. Everybody set? Everybody good? Governor Shapiro and I have been talking pretty much nonstop for the last several hours, and we've been getting briefings, and frankly are in a position where we had to weigh different risks with no great choices. There's a concern, the railroad has a serious concern which they can express to you about an explosion with one or more of these cars. They describe an explosion as potentially catastrophic. We are weighing that and have been weighing that potential versus a controlled release. And they will explain to you in a moment what a controlled release is. We have decided that that controlled release will occur today at 3:30. We're urging everyone in this area, actually ordering them to leave. We are again sending out the Ohio State Highway Patrol, sheriffs, and other law enforcement to this area. And they have already gone through there at least once. They were through this area last night, urging people to leave. The work, going back for a moment, the work that was done last night resulted in the bigger area of about close to 100 people actually deciding to leave after they were contacted last night. Let me read the statement that I think summarizes what is going on. Following new modeling information conducted this morning by the Ohio National Guard. And let me just add that we have been in consultation with the Defense Department. We've also been in consultation with the manufacturer of the product. So following new modeling information conducted this morning by the Ohio National Guard, Ohio Governor Mike DeWine and Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro are ordering an immediate evacuation in a 1 mile by 2 mile area surrounding East Palestine, which includes both Ohio and Pennsylvania. If you'll look over here, I'll get back to the mic, but the red area and the yellow area, the vinyl chloride contents of 5 rail cars are currently unstable and could potentially explode, causing deadly disbursement of shrapnel and toxic fumes. To alleviate the risk of this shrapnel, Norfolk Southern Railroad is planning a controlled release of the vinyl chloride at approximately 3:30 p.m. The controlled release of the toxic chemicals also has the potential to be deadly if inhaled. Those in the red area are facing grave danger of death if they are still in that area. Those living in the orange area are at risk of severe injury, including skin burns and serious lung damage. So this is you can see the map. I'm going to ask, I think at this point, I'm going to start with the modeler, Master Sergeant Hurst of the Ohio State Highway Patrol. He's going to briefly give you the principles in regard to the modeling that occurred as far as this area. Master Sergeant Hurst.
Thank you. Thanks. Hello, I'm Master Sergeant Hurst. I'm the primary modeler on scene. I can tell you we've extensively worked with the Defense Threat Reduction Agency, Combat Support Agency of the Department of Defense, our National Guard here, the railway crew themselves and EPA in determining what went into this model. This model is an ongoing process. As things change, we revise these models. This is based on very conservative sort of metrics to best evaluate public safety and ensure that those in this affected area are best taken care of. And we've decided amongst ourselves that as of right now, based on the current weather patterns, that this model that you see here best represents the reality of the situation. Again, as weather conditions change, as new information becomes available, these also update, and they have quite frequently throughout the day. But at this time, just as Governor DeWine has already said, those in the red affected area, and we believe most of those people have been evacuated, are most at risk. Those in the orange stand very high proclivity for serious injury, especially to their lungs, and they should absolutely evacuate if not already done so. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks. Appreciate it. So we have people out now, as I said, who are knocking on these doors again to make sure that there is no one there. Let me ask the Fire Chief Drabeck to come up here, who has done an absolutely phenomenal job during this crisis. I'm going to ask him to describe exactly where this area is. And Chief, the mics are here, the map is there, so they can only hear you if you stay by the mics.
Yes, sir. All right. As you can see, the area affected is at the easternmost part of our village. The streets in question that we're concerned about, that they are out canvassing once again, include, but not exactly limited to, Parker, South Pleasant, the BFI Access Road, Taggart Street, North Pleasant Drive, Failer Road, and East Martin, east of Pleasant. Again, we are canvassing these streets once again to try and ensure that everybody gets out of here, as we've been stressing the evacuations since the inception of this incident.
Can you tell them anything about the Pennsylvania side?
The Pennsylvania side, we're working close with Pennsylvania as well. They're deploying their units to go back and do another sweep of that area again to cover their residents within this zone. We've been in contact with them. We're working very closely with them, making sure they have what they need to facilitate that as well.
Can you give Chief, can you give any kind of description, though, of the Pennsylvania side?
From my understanding, the Pennsylvania side, there are limited residents there. It is mostly a wooded area, a lot of some game lands within that portion. Very few homes, limited residents. We feel pretty confident that they're able to get in there and get those.
Okay. Thanks, Chief.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it very much. Let me now ask Scott Deutsch to come up from the Norfolk Southern Railroad. He's going to talk a little bit about what this controlled release actually consists of.
Thank you, Governor. The process that we're going to do today, we're going to place a small shape charge. It's going to create a hole about 2.5 to 3 inches in the tank car. This will allow the material to come out of the tank car. It'll go into a pit and trench that we have dug and set up for this operation. Inside that trench will be flares lining that trench that then will light off the material. We're doing this so that we control this tank car that we have concerns with, these tank cars. This allows us to control that operation and not have the car react and do it itself. So that's what we're going to be doing later on today.
And if you just stay up for a minute,
Mm-hmm.
the length of the release, how long does that take?
Based on the amount of material in there, it could burn anywhere from 1 hour to 3 hours. It all depends how much is left from the initial fires. So that's what we're looking at.
And can you also talk about the imperative of doing this during the day?
Yes, sir.
Because that was part of the rationale of the decision.
Yeah. Part of the decision-making process that we followed was if the car started to react again, the cars, I keep saying car, if they started to react on their own again, we can't control that time of day when that would occur. That would in turn, we'd have to worry about an inversion and other things weather related. Okay, so we want to do it in the daylight, close to, prior to sunset as possible. That's our plan right now.
You want to talk for a moment also about the danger if the release is not done and what your concern is.
So if you had an inversion occur, it will hold down the products of combustion that would normally go up into the atmosphere. And that would start to make a layer and hold that in longer. If we do it during the daytime, that'll allow the products to just keep moving up into the atmosphere.
And
it's better for everyone for us to do it then.
You want to talk for a moment in regard to if there is an explosion, if the release is not done, and if there's actually turns out to be an explosion, what that would consist of.
Okay. So our controlled explosion, as I was telling you, we'll put a 2.5 to 3 inch hole in the car. If we don't do that, the car could continue to polymerize and the entire car will break apart. We can't control where that goes. So that's the reason for doing this, get moving on this, so we don't have to run into that, letting the car do it itself. We want to be able to control that situation. That's the safest way, is to control the situation, and that's with this operation we're going to take this afternoon. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you,
Appreciate
sir.
it very much. Okay, more than happy to take questions. We have our experts up here, and we'll start right there.
Governor, do we know where this train originated and if it went through Akron, Canton, Cleveland, any of the major cities?
Yeah,
here?
that'd be a question for the railroad if anybody knows.
I don't know.
I'm
I'm not sure right now.
He doesn't have that information, but that information is clearly available. So.
I guess this would also be for the Norfolk Southern gentleman, twofold. This is in effect a controlled burn, essentially, that you're going to let the material out and then burn it so it doesn't do it itself, correct?
Correct.
Can you?
Correct, sir.
The other question we had, we've seen doorbell camera video prior to the explosion Friday night that showed one of the axles, at least on one of the trucks of those tankers, seemingly on fire. Did the train pass over any warning mechanisms that would have allowed the engineers to know we have a problem further behind us?
I personally cannot comment on that because the NTSB has that investigation. They're controlling all that information.
What are the long-term effects of this explosion and just the derailment in general? There's residents that are concerned about them seeing dead fish and worried about their water wells and fires now in the future. So what do you have to tell concerned residents and what precautions can be taken?
Yeah, let me ask James Justice to come up with the U.S. EPA. He'll talk for a moment about the air quality issue, and I believe we also have someone here who can, from the EPA. You want to come on up and talk about the water, James?
Thank you, Governor.
Thank you.
I'll speak briefly about the air monitoring, and then my partner, colleague from Ohio EPA will speak more to your question about water quality. We've been working in conjunction with each other throughout the incident to support the incident commander of the fire department, and also in conjunction with consultants from Norfolk Southern. And Governor DeWine was fortunate to bring and activate the National Guard and the civil support team to assist in the continued air monitoring efforts. So far, the air monitoring has been, we haven't detected any sustained readings that would be a health effect. I know that's a little bit surprising given the smoke and the plume, but as the atmosphere, the smoke has been burning and going up, and we have been targeting a lot of the main contaminants of concern, and we have real-time monitoring that can detect most of the chemicals of concern. We're backing that up with analytical results that we would get back from a laboratory, and we're going to continue to do that throughout this process, this controlled burn, if you will, based on the model as Sergeant Major indicated. Things can change, and so we'll monitor throughout this to make sure if there are any changes based on air monitoring, we can make other decisions and react quickly to those changes. And I'll defer.
Let me ask you a question.
Yes,
As people look at this modeling, and maybe somebody else can answer this as well, But if weather does change, let's say weather changes during the process of this release, is there another zone out there that people should be concerned about? I don't know who can take it.
I'll take it.
I'll take that.
Right, as I said earlier, as any kind of conditions change, especially weather, wind direction, precipitation, we will constantly reassess and revise what you see here on this model. Again, this is already an extremely conservative model, and we have a fairly significant, like a high degree of confidence in it. But to answer your question, Governor, any new information that we get, and we're working closely with Defense Threat Reduction Agency and the EPA, we will continue to revise.
I noticed that on this, we have another line out here. You want to talk about that?
Roger. The black line that you see is what we call the area of concern, which is typically no more than a shelter in place or an absolute worst case estimate of potential. That is, in effect, your buffer zone, your wiggle room of what this model dictates, given the many variables that go into it. Yes.
Oh yes, even with this, you say it's a conservative estimate, but even with this controlled burn and this controlled release, can you explain a little bit more about exactly what toxins will be released to the air? And also, how soon after you started,
You want to take that or you want?
that this operation has been successful?
Yeah, so specifically, the tanks we're concerned with right now are filled with vinyl chloride. The burning of those is going to create two byproducts that we're primarily concerned with. One is phosgene, and the other would be hydrogen chloride. There should be an extremely small amount of phosgene actually produced. And again, we've been working closely with the toxicologists and EPA to confirm that our math is right. Anytime something changes, we reassess and re-advise. But those are the two primary chemicals of concern right now.
And again, how soon after you started the operation do you think you'll know if it's working?
That's
a
actually
different question.
I'll let you take that.
That'll all be determined by the fire, the amount of material flowing through the trenches to the fire. Once the material ceases to come out of the car, then we would know that we've completed the operation.
So it's let me add something. So it's, and you can correct me now on this, but according to Norfolk Southern, they believe that you potentially have two cars that are completely full. You have three other cars that are half or less, I think is how your team, is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So that went into the calculation as well. I do want to get the water in here though, because we had a question about air and water.
Thank you, Governor.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. Kurt Kohler with the Ohio EPA's Office of Emergency Response. Kind of following up with the information from yesterday. We knew at the onset of this incident there was impact to Sulphur Creek and waters of the state of Ohio. Since that point in time, we have been able to successfully control that runoff and contain the water and either treat it in place along with a robust sampling program for the water quality and we continue to expand that. And that will continue throughout this operation. As those results are coming in, we are having experts in the field look at that and evaluate that and give us feedback. The impact of the fish, yes, there was a impact to those. However, the levels as we have seen it are protective to groundwater. We are aware there are some wells along that for residential wells. We are awaiting those results and looking at those well logs and help those citizens evaluate issues on that. As far as the city's well field, to date, that is still protected. There is nothing to indicate a threat to the well field. Long-term plans, as the cleanup and recovery of the rail goes, we'll coincide with the company, Norfolk Southern, and their consultants to do a proper and thorough evaluation of the nature and extent of contamination that remains. That could then be evaluated for the long-term options for cleanup to ensure that we don't have a leaching effect in the groundwater that would pose a long-term threat.
Let me ask a question. If I live where I have my own well, at this point. Would you recommend people drink the water? Or what do we know? Because those have not been tested.
Groundwater wells are designed to not take in, we don't have surface water intakes, nor are your wells at your home. So by design, they're protected away from the surface water or any material that would be deposited in the train rail accident. The groundwater, yes, they have a capture zone, either in the large well fields for the city or your small one. There is a delay. These are years in times of travel. Again, this is something we will look at. How deep is the contamination? There will be not just horizontal, but depth, so that we can make sound decisions based on the information gathered during the investigation. I will add, there was an options for the smoke of knockdown with water. That was ruled against because then we would be delivering additional contamination into an area that could have greater risk. In this case, the dilution airborne is a better choice.
Governor Marianne from the Morris Journal. Can you go over again where the area is that people are supposed to evacuate and where they are supposed to shelter in place? Because that looks a little bigger than what they were saying.
Yeah. Again, I mean, the new information, of course, is what we have given you. I think what should get everyone's attention is the description of, if you're in the red area or if you're in the yellow area, what the threat is. And so that is it's a very, very serious thing. So I'm going to ask the chief to come back up then and try to answer your question.
So sorry, Governor. The majority of this in the red and the back side of the yellow is still well within that 1 mile radius that we established at the beginning of this. Where this changed was when we looked at those plume model, or the models that they generated based on this controlled release. At that point, that's where we had that extension because of the wind and the weather going into Beaver County, Pennsylvania, and we've been working in conjunction with them from the onset of this incident. They have been well aware throughout the entire thing, and the minute that we had these models, they were here. We already had things in place and started that process moving.
Okay.
Do you know how many people approximately are left in this yellow area versus the red?
Yeah. 20 households in Pennsylvania. And the numbers that are given to me as we did this was a total, basically a total of potentially 30 people.
When can people return back to their homes?
I don't think we know that yet.
Governor, can you, just to clarify, you said that there are 2 monochloride is the concern, and there are 2 cars filled with it, and another 3 that are half filled with it. How much material are we talking about in terms of gallons or pounds?
Right. Let me see if you do the somebody here's got the capacity. Anybody from the just give me your name.
My name's Lieutenant Farmer with the 52nd CST. So a full tank car had approximately 177,000 pounds.
Got that? Nobody knows. If anybody wants to give any information, but we don't know that. So it's not going to be immediate. It's not going to be quickly. We have no knowledge that anybody's left, but we did not want to take any chances. And as I said, these doors and many other doors were knocked on again last night, and people were told, if you have children, you're subject to arrest if you do not leave with these children. If they did not have children, they would have been told, you need to leave. We're urging you to leave. We've sent them back to again knock on doors and to be as forceful as they can. And let me just, the way it was described to me last night as far as the knocking on the doors, at least in Ohio, was that it was very loud. That, knocking on windows, knocking on doors, doing everything we could to get these people's attention if they were still inside. What we don't know is how many of them just left. And we don't know what we don't know. But again, we're back out there right now knocking on doors. We're doing this. We assume some people have TV on, radio on. And again, I would just suggest that anybody in this area or where the black line is I would leave if I was in that area. Yeah. Well, let's get somebody who got anybody. Yeah.
You talked about the imminent danger for the folks in the red and the yellow areas, but you haven't touched on the danger for the folks that are going to be conducting this controlled release.
I'll leave that to the railroad.
Yeah, so the individuals we have on scene have done this before, and they're taking those precautions. We use thermal imaging cameras for heat detection. We use air monitoring, and then they make entry in a safe pathway into the cars. Then they'll do their work their way back out. They have other safeties built in if anything happens, so that there's a team that can go get them. All that's in place. They're watching the cars, and as long as they're maintaining the temperature we want them to right now, they can make that entry to complete this task.
Thank you, Kevin. A question also for the gentleman from Norfolk Southern, but for the Ohio EPA. We've heard a lot of stories of fish killing in the area that are being blamed, correctly or incorrectly, on this. What will be the effect of the controlled release on wildlife in this surrounding area that might be affected? And to the Norfolk Southern gentleman, will you do a controlled release on all 5 of the cars that you're talking about, or is there one that's going on?
Why don't you take that first? And then
You want the first one?
Again, the missions of the EPAs are to protect public health and the environment. We are aware that wildlife may be in the area, and I don't know if there's methods. We do have the Ohio Department of Natural Resources who could probably reach out to the Pennsylvania Game Commission, that there might be ways that we could reduce or eliminate animals that might be in that area.
So the area where the actual pit is dug is on railroad property, and it's in the trench right along the tracks in that area there. So the material will flow into there. The fire will be generally just in that area.
So all 5 cars will have to be...
Yes, yes.
Well, let me stop a minute. I want to get a little bit into Pennsylvania and Beaver County. You want to go first?
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Commissioner Daniel Camp, Beaver County Commissioner, along with Commissioner Tony Amadeo and Director Eric Brewer. On Pennsylvania's side, we are working with our EMC in Darlington Township, where you see the yellow and red model, which will cover the only township in Beaver County. That township has been evacuated. As the governor said earlier, we have 20 households in that area. We are working with the EMC coordinator, our local police department, to revisit those houses to urge all residents in Beaver County. That will be 3 roads: East Palestine Road, Taggart Road, and the top port of North State Line. So we are urging our residents to leave as soon as possible, and we will continue to work with Columbiana County EMA in the state of Ohio to get these people back into their house as soon as possible. Anything else you said?
No, again, just to reiterate, in Beaver County, we're still into the 1 mile recommended evacuation zone. Most of those residents were out last night, so there's not a big change for us. We're just going back. The local and state police are going door to door to reinforce that recommended evacuation.
Who else? Look, we don't know for sure. We went to the number I gave you, which was 30, is based, but that's only on census track. We don't know who's moved in, who's moved out. We don't have those numbers.
That's in the entire yellow and orange, correct?
Yes, both states. Anybody else?
This is for Norfolk Southern.
explain the process. Are you going after the half-full tanker cars, or the full ones first, or is it simultaneously?
For safety purposes, simultaneously. So once you open it up and start to fire, going down to the pit, you can't get back into the other cars. So they'll all be done simultaneously.
So all the charges will go off
Yes.
at the same time.
5 cars.
Yes.
Explain why this threat was elevated around 48 hours after the train derailed. Why the evacuations came out Sunday night. Why the response from you came out Sunday night, Governor.
I had a briefing Sunday night about 7 o'clock. I had received briefings previous to that. The one Sunday night basically expressed grave concern about an explosion. And just, the explosion was described as catastrophic. Then, there was also in that briefing the discussion of what could be done to avoid that. And the thing that could be done was this controlled release. They had, the railroad had information Sunday night of one particular car that the temperature was rising. And they told us if it continued to rise, that they could have you certainly could have an explosion. So the information, all along we've been taking all the information that we can and trying to make judgments. I think the good news is that everyone, Pennsylvania and Ohio, were very cautious. We went out early on as far as evacuation. I can't say enough for the fire chief here, who's done, I think, a good job. The mayor, I think the local officials have done a phenomenal job, and they started this process of getting people to evacuate. We were concerned, candidly, that we had at least out of the initial zone area, we had over 500 people that were still, as far as we could tell, still there. I sent them back out last night. I activated the Ohio National Guard to come in, and to do traffic and sealing off areas. The Highway Patrol participated in going door to door, and we believe that close to 100 people left because of that going door to door. So it's been we've been cautious all the way through, but the new information last night, upped it, our concern, and certainly my concern, a great deal.
Were those people in those zones, and are there 400 people still remaining in those zones?
Bigger zone, it's my understanding. Bigger zone. So we were, again, cautious there. Chief, Chief,
sir.
Is that correct?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Well, it was my statement that the initial area that you sent people door to door, and that we tried to clear out.
Correct.
Bigger than this.
Yes. So we have already, everything in here in the state of Ohio, we have already hit. Everything inside of this model fell inside of our initial evacuation zone that we went door to door with the help of the Sheriff's Department, the Ohio State Patrol, and several other entities. We did not have to extend anything based on this model. We are just going back to revisit so that we can urge anybody, if they're still there, the necessity to get out because of the volatility of this. We just want them to be safe. That's all we want. That's all I've wanted from the start of this.
And then the new information should up everyone's sense of urgency and their sense of danger. When you listen to the description, if you're in that red zone, you're likely of very possible death, and if you're in the yellow zone, certainly severe long-term injuries. So this is a more specific information, which we hope, if anyone is still left in those zones, they will take that information and decide that they need to leave.
So how long after these people make it into the air will it take for them to dissipate?
Anybody know how long it takes to dissipate? I don't think we know. Do you?
I don't think we know, and that's what the air monitoring will assist with.
You know, the air monitoring will continue. They've come in, EPA's come in very early and started the monitoring, and they're going to continue to do that. And so that information will be disseminated to you and the news media so that that can get out to the public. And there will certainly be an announcement at what point, you know, the air within that area is safe and people could come back. Anybody else?
Flames like we saw initially, will there be huge flames and smoke, gloom, and such?
Yes, you will. Similar to what you saw earlier when the cars were venting.
All right, anybody else? Let me just close by again urging everyone in Pennsylvania and Ohio who's in this area, you know, you need to leave. You just need to leave. We're ordering you to leave. This is a matter of life and death. What's different now is we know that something is going to happen around 3:30. This controlled release will actually take place, and you are in imminent danger. You need to leave immediately. And to state the obvious, all of you need to leave as well, and I need to leave as well too. So, anything else?
Is there any concern about the air quality in the immediate area right outside of the radius when blowing any of those? You guys talked about it being controlled. How are you controlling that air?
Right outside the edge. I think she's talking about at the edge of the zone. Anybody want to take that?
Outside of the black is what they're referring to.
Yeah, I'll take that. We have taken some preliminary air samples, and outside of that is, as of right now, negligible. Again, like I've continued to say, the National Guard is working very closely with DTRA, EPA, and the railway. And as new information becomes available, as new readings become available, we update this. But at this time, the readings that we have now that go into making this model indicates that outside of that black line, the area of concern is relatively safe. That doesn't mean that you should try to go as close as you can to that black line. No, this isn't a spectacle to watch in a lawn chair. You should be very cautious in this area, if at all possible.
The fire chief has one more announcement. Chief.
Thank you, Governor. In order to provide an extra layer of safety, working again in conjunction with Norfolk Southern, we have called Ohio Edison in. We are going to shut down the power in that area. In order to do that, Ohio Edison needs to do some switching of stations. That is going to cause what has been described to me as a brief interruption of approximately 5 minutes to this area where we're at. Long enough to switch that power so that we can retain power here and to the citizens on this side that are outside of that mile. So here, real quick, when the governor tells me we're done with this, it's going to get dark in here real quick, so don't hang around.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Can we get the spellings of the gentlemen who spoke?
Yeah. Do you want to spell your names? Chief?
Fire chief for the village. What? All right. Fire chief for the village of East Palestine, Keith Drabick, KeithDrabick.
Master Sergeant David Hurst, DAVIDHURST, part of the 52nd Civil Support Team, Ohio National Guard.
Scott Deutsch, Norfolk Southern, DEUTSCH.
Kurt Kohler, Ohio EPA, Office of Emergency Response, KURTKOLLAR.
James Justice, on-scene coordinator with the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, JAMESJUSTICE.
Daniel Camp, Beaver County Commissioner, Pennsylvania, DANIELCAMP.
Eric Brewer, Director of Emergency Services for Beaver County, ERICBREWER.
All right, thanks. Appreciate it. Thank you all very much.
Is there another staging area, or just there? Where?
Good question.
saying we're not safe here, is that correct?
Yeah. Another staging area, Chief?
Another staging area for media?
Yeah.
You're saying we're not safe here, correct?
You're safe. I mean, you're outside of that mile evacuation.
You're outside of that.
Okay? But
Your choice.
your choice, but I need you out of here for safety reasons. I don't want this power to go out and you guys to walk and trip. So I'm going to give you about 4 minutes to gather your equipment and get to the outside. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, Governor. Yeah.